FREENBECKY. Representation that feels like home. Not all representation is loud. Some of it is felt. When people talk about representation, they often imagine something bold and unmistakable. Declaration. Label. A moment designed to be historic. But for many people, especially LGBTQ+ fans, the most meaningful representation doesn't arrive with noise. It arrives quietly. It arrives in the way two people treat each other when no one is asking them to perform. It arrives in gentleness. It arrives in consistency. That is where FREENBECKY lives. Freen Sorocha and Becky Armstrong did not step into public view intending to become symbols. They didn't announce themselves as answers to cultural conversations. And yet, somehow they became one, not by trying to represent but by simply being real with each other. And for millions of people around the world, that reality felt like home. What home means to queer audiences. For many LGBTQ+ individuals, home is not a physical place. It's a feeling that has often been missing. Home is where you don't have to explain yourself. Home is where your existence is not questioned. Home is where love doesn't feel like a performance or a risk. So when fans say that FREENBECKY feels like home, they are not speaking metaphorically. They are describing an emotional response to something they rarely get to see. A connection that exists without tension, without shame, without urgency to justify itself. Freen and Becky don't look like they are hiding. They also don't look like they are proving anything. They simply look safe. And safety, for many queer people, is the most radical form of representation there is. Representation without explanation. One of the most powerful things about FREENBECKY is what they don't do. They don't overdefine their relationship for public comfort. They don't dramatize intimacy. They don't package affection in ways that feel consumable. Instead, they let moments exist as they are. A look held a second longer than necessary. A hand offered without thinking. A smile that softens only for one person. These moments are not framed as statements. And that's precisely why they matter. For LGBTQ+ fans who have spent years being told their love must be explained, justified or clarified, seeing a bond that refuses to be interrogated feels revolutionary. FREENBECKY shows that love can exist without footnotes. 4. Why this connection feels different from fanservice. Audiences today are highly media literate. They know what performance looks like. They recognize fanservice when they see it. And that is why FREENBECKY stands apart. Nothing about their connection feels exaggerated. Nothing feels rehearsed. Nothing feels transactional. They do not turn intimacy on and off depending on the camera. Their closeness does not spike during promotions and disappear afterward. It remains steady, quiet, consistent, and unbothered by expectations. That consistency is what convinces people. Not because it proves romance, but because it proves sincerity. The language of mutual respect. At the heart of FREENBECKY's impact is mutual respect. They do not interrupt each other. They do not speak over each other's experiences. They do not center themselves at the other's expense. When one shines, the other doesn't dim. When one struggles, the other steadies. This balance matters deeply to fans who have seen queer relationships portrayed as chaotic, tragic, or unequal. FREENBECKY offers a different image, one where two people grow side by side, not at each other's cost. This kind of representation teaches without preaching. Says, you can love without losing yourself. Says, you can support without controlling. Says, you can be close without being consumed. For many viewers, that is the representation they never had growing up. Visibility without vulnerability exploitation. There is something deeply ethical about the way Freen and Becky navigate visibility. They are present. They are affectionate. They are honest in their warmth. But they do not expose themselves for validation. In a culture that often pressures queer figures to come out or define themselves publicly for the sake of representation, FREENBECKY offers a gentler model, one where personal truth does not belong to the public. And this resonates strongly with fans who understand how dangerous forced visibility can be. Freen and Becky remind people that representation does not require sacrifice, that you can be meaningful without bleeding for the audience, that privacy does not cancel authenticity. That message alone has made many fans feel seen in a way no explicit storyline ever could. A global response that can't be manufactured. One of the most telling things about FREENBECKY's impact is how widespread and consistent the emotional response has been. Different countries, different cultures, different languages, yet fans describe the same feeling. Warmth, calm, familiarity. That kind of response does not come from narrative alone. Comes from something universally recognizable. Genuine connection. You cannot script millions of people into feeling the same emotional truth. They feel it because it's there. Why home is the word fans keep choosing. When fans describe FREENBECKY as home, they are expressing relief. Relief from constant explanation. Relief from judgment. Relief from performance. Home is where you rest. Home is where you don't brace yourself. Home is where love doesn't feel conditional. That is what this connection represents. Not perfection. Not fantasy. But emotional safety. And for many LGBTQ+ fans, especially those who grew up without seeing themselves reflected kindly, that safety is everything. Representation that stays with you. Long after interviews end and projects move on, the impact of FREENBECKY remains. Not because of unanswered questions, but because of answered needs. The need to see love without fear. The need to see care without chaos. The need to see connection without compromise. This is representation that doesn't shout for attention. Stays quietly. Settles deeply. Feels like home. Conclusion. Why FREENBECKY matters beyond labels. Freen and Becky may never define their bond publicly, and they don't need to, because what they have already given is something far more lasting than confirmation. They have given people permission to believe that love can be gentle, that connection can be safe, that representation can feel like belonging instead of spectacle. And that is why FREENBECKY will always matter. Not because of what they say, but because of what people feel when they see them. Because sometimes, the most powerful representation isn't the one that announces itself. It's the one that feels like coming home.